Hello, this is John Hesse, Cahokia Presbyterian Church. We're reading from Of Moose and Men by Tori Martin and Doug Peterson, and we're reading the chapter entitled The Bear Removal Team. Sam, the dog, scented a bear outside. We could tell by the way he was behaving. He was switched on, and his barks were coming fast and furious. He didn't take a breath between barks, and he lost complete control of his saliva. Dog spit flying in every direction. If we could translate his barks into human speech, I'm sure he would be shouting, "There's a bear, there's 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 a bear." It was about 4 a.m. when Sam exploded into a non-stop barking frenzy. And in the Alaskan summer, that means it was just getting light. Rob and I both woke up to Sam's outburst, and Rob went straight for his pistol, a .22 caliber Ruger. Then he nudged open the door to the cabin, and there it was. The black bear we had seen in the vicinity on about 6 occasions. The bear was only about 7 feet from our door. We waited for it to move along, but as time ticked by, this bad news bear wouldn't budge. The creature blocked the trail leading down to our vehicles, which was going to pose a problem for both Rob and me if the bear didn't clear out. Bear had to take a work-related flight in a matter of hours, so he needed to get down the trail to his van. And I needed to take a flight later that day for one of the most important professional events in my life, the Christian Artist Seminar in the Rockies near Estes Park, Colorado. I was scheduled to compete in the acting division of the seminar, which also featured contests in music, writing, and singing. Rob decided to put a fright into the bear, so he aimed at the ground not far from the creature and shot at least 10 times. The dirt kicked up, and the bear finally moved, but it came right back. It lumbered around the small belt of trees directly in front of our cabin, winding up back at our door. "Shotgun," Rob said, handing me his pistol. I was like a nurse at surgery, handing scalpels to the physician. Once again, Dr. Rob took aim at the ground directly in front of the bear and fired away with his shotgun, kicking up another spray of dirt. The bear backed up a couple of feet, but that was as far as it went. This bear was not afraid of anything. And a bear that has lost its fear of humans and guns is a very dangerous bear. We later learned that this same bear had been rummaging in the trash outside of a nearby house, trapping 2 boys in their garage for a couple of hours. This bear was clearly a menace to both people and pets. Although in Alaska, folks are usually smart enough not to leave a dog outside. Dogs tied outside attract bears, which gobble up all the dog food and then drag the pet off into the bushes for dessert. We continued to wait out the bear, but it wasn't going anywhere. There was no way I was going to be able to leave the cabin, suitcase in hand, and simply say, "Excuse me, Mrs. Bear, I'm late for my flight, but if you'll just move to one side, I promise to give you my bag of in-flight peanuts." I had to admit, however, that part of me didn't mind missing my flight to Colorado, because the idea of performing at the seminar in the Rockies was about as scary as facing this bear. Our church secretary, Janie Downing, suggested I go to the seminar in the Rockies because that's where a lot of people in the Christian entertainment industry first get noticed. I'd been an actor in California before coming to Alaska, but this would be my first acting stint in a long time, other than a few performances at church. Leading up to this event, I had written a sketch and performed it for our church, and then our pastor, Jack Aiken, did something he didn't routinely do. He took a special offering to raise money to send me to the seminar in the Rockies. So how could I not go to Colorado and perform if my entire church was behind me? I had to go, despite my fears, assuming I could get past this bear. And this was no small teddy bear. Whenever I measure the size of things, I use a general rule. If I'm ever standing close to something and I feel small in comparison, odds are is that it is big. This mama bear was about 250 pounds. Rob didn't have a bear tag, so he couldn't legally shoot the bear. He called Alaska Fish and Game and told them the situation, hoping they would send out a bear removal team to trap the bear and transport it to a safe location away from people. However, the agency said we lived so far away that they couldn't get a team out to us for several hours. Rob needed to get to his plane soon, so he asked if he had permission to shoot the bear since it was clearly aggressive. They told us to wait it out, and if the creature didn't go away by the time Rob had to leave, he had the green light to shoot. So we waited and waited, and that bear simply would not leave. That bear was so stubbornly determined to stick around, I was beginning to think the Church of Latter-day Saints had sent it to our door. Finally, Rob could wait no longer. By this time, the black bear was only a few feet from our cabin. Rob positioned himself on the threshold of the front door while I moved back and held on to Sam to keep him from attacking the animal. As the bear turned its head, showing its profile, Rob leaned a little to his left, took aim, and shot the bear right behind the ear. It was a risk. If he didn't kill the bear instantly, it might turn on us, claws ready. But it would be difficult for any creature to remain standing when someone fires a shotgun from close range. The big Bruin hit the ground. It appeared the bear was dead, but we had to make sure. So I put Sam in a bedroom and we went to investigate the results very carefully. This sent Sam into greater spasms of barking. Sam was our protector, and he went ballistic at the idea of us being outside with the bear, but without him. When we were finally sure the bear was dead, we opened the door and Sam came tearing out at full speed. Bark, 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 bark. He was moving so fast he ran right past the bear without even seeing it. Where's the bear? 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 Then he went tearing around the trees, sprinting in a half circle, and wound up back at the cabin's front door. At last he looked down and finally spotted the big bear sprawled out in front of our cabin steps. He suddenly went quiet and stared at the bear for about a second. Then he went back to what he did best, barking, "There's the bear, there's 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 the bear." By this time, Rob was running late, so he left for the airport, putting me in charge of disposing 250 pounds of bear. So I did what any normal person in Alaska would do when they have a bear on their doorstep. I called Alaska Fish and Game and asked them to bring in someone to cart away the carcass. A free food removal team, you might say. Without a hunting license, we are not allowed to keep the bear. The state would keep the hide and give the meat to the first name on a special list maintained by the state. About mid-morning, a free food removal team drove out to claim the meat. A real Alaskan meet and greet. Imagine my surprise when I saw the group was comprised of a youth pastor and 4 teenagers. In the lower 48, church youth groups play games and go to water parks. In Alaska, youth groups gut bears. At first, the youth pastor began doing the gutting right there on the foot of our cabin stairs, but I was having none of that. I'm not going to have guts right in front of our cabin. You're going to have to take it down the trail. So the youth pastor and the teens dragged the carcass halfway down the trail, chatting happily. The backstrap of a berry-fed bear is much better than the backstrap of a fish-fed bear, the pastor said. Try saying that 8 times really fast. The backstrap, by the way, is the best tasting part of a bear. I'm really glad you guys live up here on the mountain, he continued. This means this is a berry-fed bear, not a fish-fed bear. The backstrap of a fish-fed bear tastes fishy, but the backstrap of a berry-fed bear doesn't. I think I followed all of that. When the group found a good place to skin the animal, I left the youth pastor to his gory work, went back to the cabin, and finished packing. On my way to the Jeep, I had to step directly over the dead bear, luggage in tow, only in Alaska. As I left for the airport, I assumed the youth group would dump the bear guts in the woods, far from the path to our cabin. Little did I know that the youth group finished gutting the bear and then tossed the entrails just a few feet off the path. Isn't there an old cowboy song? Happy trails to you until we meet again. Thanks to the guts near our trail, when Rob returned from his short work trip, he was shocked to find a full-grown grizzly directly on the path. The creature had been lured there by the discarded guts and was now having himself a jolly feast. The grizzly had to weigh close to 800 pounds, making the black bear look as small as a cuddly Star Wars Ewok. Rob backtracked to his car and spent the next 2 days at a friend's house until it was safe to return to the cabin. The crazy thing about this story is that about 4 years later, when I was no longer living in Alaska, I returned to the state to do my comedy routine, telling stories about the last frontier. I just happened to tell the tale of the black bear and the grizzly, and a man at the back of the room suddenly started waving his arms and announcing that he was the youth pastor who had gutted that bear. After the show, he told me he was sorry about leaving the guts by the trail, but at least I got a good biblical message out of it. That's right, I can even find a parable in bear guts. In Matthew 12, 43 through 45, Jesus says that when a man drives an evil spirit out of his life, it will try to return to that man and will bring 7 other spirits more wicked than himself. And the final condition of that man is worse than the first. Jesus finished. Those ugly guts are a lot like the evil spirit from Jesus' story, the spirit that had been driven out of a certain man. When my youth pastor friend tossed those guts right by the trail, they attracted a grizzly bear that was far more dangerous than the original bear. The grizzly was like those 7 spirits, which were far more wicked than the first spirit. After all, that grizzly was more than 3 times the size of that black bear. In the previous chapter, the one about the moose poking its nose in the window, I talked about keeping evil out of your life. But there's another part to the lesson. When evil invades your life and you boot it out, make sure you get rid of it completely. When you drive a particular sin from your life, when you're disposing of the guts, so to speak, make sure you drive it far away from you. If you don't completely clear the sin away, you're going to attract something far more insidious than the original sin. You're going to replace that 250-pound black bear in your life with an 800-pound grizzly. Here's another important lesson to draw from Matthew 12. After you drive away a sin, replace it with God. In Matthew, note that when the evil spirit returned, it found the house unoccupied, swept clean, and put in order. Although the man got rid of the evil spirit, he didn't invite the Lord of the house to replace the diabolical lodger. The house, which symbolizes a man's life, was left unoccupied and abandoned. And we all know what can happen to an abandoned house. It becomes the perfect place for squatters. When you don't let God occupy your life, you become like that abandoned house, open for spiritual squatters. So once you dispose of the guts, make sure you invite God into your life, for He's the ideal lodger. He helps around the house and provides you with living water. And I hear He sets a nice table in the wilderness. By the way, this is by no means a lesson I've mastered, and I have to remind myself of it daily. After all that happened with the 2 bears, I am happy to report that Rob was eventually able to get back into our cabin, and I made it safely to the airport and flew to the Christian Artist Seminar in the Rockies. There, things got even more interesting. But that's another story. Thank you very much for your time, and God bless you.